Hi, and welcome to the next High Poly lecture. Just a couple of things before we move forward. Just a couple of fixes I've done on the hut walls. Below the window on the interior here, I had a couple of verts, just one on this edge here and one on that edge, and I've just snapped them to the bottom and welded them in place. They didn't need to be there. The other thing I did was put the hinges back onto the door because they were detached. When we moved it all around, they just got left behind, so I've attached them back onto the door. I also cleaned up some edges along the top here and deleted them. We didn't need them. That's on both sides, in fact. I think that was it, actually. So just a couple of things you need to be aware of, and if you're copying my design here, then you should do the same. If you ended up with a couple of verts floating and some extra edges up here, just clean it up, get it out of the way so it's done, and you're just left with a nice clean model. And now we're just going to move on and start the porch, so I'll see you there. Okay, so here we go. What I've done here is I've just merged in the white box model of the porch. Now I've shown you how to merge, so you can do that quite easily, and all I've done also is snapped it to the corner of the hut. And again, you know how to snap things, so you just move it and snap it to the corner of the hut, and instantly you can see that the porch, the white box porch, isn't quite high enough for the hut floor, so we can fix that as we go along. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make the actual walkway here individual planks. So we're going to do about 3 or 4, and then we're going to repeat them along. That way we can keep the UV and texture space down, and we can rotate them, move them around, etc. So it won't look too repetitive. But in terms of their shape and their UV space, they'll be exactly the same. We're going to make these steps a lot more interesting. We're obviously going to put a top on the step, and we're probably going to sag them a little bit so they look like they've been trodden on for many years. Thicken this up, make it a bit more rickety. We're going to put in some support beams for these here, put some bevels on there, put some support, because that in reality is just way too long for our porch bar there. It's just too long, and you wouldn't get that in reality, so we need to put in some supports along here, support that, and yeah, just generally make it a bit more interesting to look at, and more detailed, more realistic, if you like. Right, so we're going to start by selecting this walkway here. Just select your element and just click on it, and that will select the whole lot of that, and we know it's a separate object because we built it in the first place, so we know it was a separate element. And then just detach that. So go up here to detach and click on that, and just call it walkway or something, so we know. So it's basically so we can get rid of it once we've got our planks in place. But what I want to do is model this so it's realistic. So we're going to have, support beams going along underneath, and we'll support it with beams on the floor. Those stone piles will support it on the end here, but we're going to have wooden beams going along here just to give it some support. And not only that, when you walk along here, we're going to have gaps in the individual planks, so you can see underneath and you can see the beams running along. Okay, let's start by just creating some beams to go along here. Okay, you're not going to see these that much underneath, So we're not going to bevel them, we're just going to leave them like that pretty much. Might want to just put in a couple of edges because that's some pretty long, faces there, and like I said before, I don't think Unity likes long triangles, long things, so you just need to do a couple of swift loops along here just to break it up a little bit. And it's a few polygons, it won't matter too much, but it will help the render those a lot better. Yeah, that's much better, so it's a lot shorter. Okay, I'm going to be fast forwarding parts of this, bits that you already know. You don't need to keep seeing the same thing over and over again, and I'll just talk when there's something new that I want to say, and we'll go from there. So see how it goes. Okay, so just call that underbeam or something, just so you know what it is, because there's going to be a lot of boxes otherwise. And I'm going to have 2 of these, and this is going to be where our planks sort of sit on top of. Combined with our piles of stones here, that'll be cool. It's just, in reality, I know a bit about construction. My family's in construction, so you would put your beams across the slats and nail them down, so fix them into place. So that's cool. It just gives it a bit of a realistic look. Just move them apart a bit more. There we go. And just having them stick out a bit on the end here, it's quite cool. It's just they can be slightly different lengths as well. I think when we come to doing UVs, we'll probably only have one of these that will share the same UVs and texture space, perhaps. That's quite a common thing to do. It's underneath. You're not really going to see too much of it. It's going to be lit dark, so it kind of makes sense just to not spend too much of your resources on that beam, basically. Okay, so now we're going to do some planks to go along the top. We've got that separated. We could almost get rid of that now because we know the length. Let's just hide it for now. Okay, so walkway, hide. Okay, so now we need some planks to go along here. You might be wondering why then. Why put these under it? Because it's the detail. These are the details that make the difference. It feels more realistic. Having just a floating platform up there with no support or suggestion that there's any sort of realistic construction going on, it sort of takes it away from the realism. So, your mind won't question it if it sees it. That's the bottom line. So it's quite important. The details are what make the difference, basically. And when we do planks like this to go onto our onto when we do planks for our walkway, we want to make sure that they are pretty realistic. We don't want just square boxes like that. It's just boring, and we can move this up to the floor. It's in the right place. First, let's have a look. Is that too thick? Perhaps it is, actually. So we can modify this. Oops. So it's proper plank. We don't want it too thin. Like I said before, chunky is really good. It's just giving that extra exaggeration on models in games is good because it gives it a bit more presence. A few gaps here and there is not a bad thing. Okay, so we like the size of that, so we'll just move this up now so it meets the floor of the hut. Like that. That's it. It's better. Okay, so let's work on this some more. For starters, I don't like these straight ends. You know, that it's too straight. Let's just convert it to a poly. Yeah, even if it's just a subtle shift, it makes all the difference. You know, this guy's living in the woods. He would saw this, and it wouldn't be the greatest sort of construction, and it would be rotten over time, and bits of it missing, and yeah. So let's just give it a loop halfway along here. I'll just give it a shift slightly, so it's not quite straight. That way. Yeah, that's better. Okay, now I'm going to chamfer these edges. You don't need to do the underneath so much, but we will do the tops. Okay, I think that'll do. I mean, it's like I said, textures do a lot of the work. Let's take edges off. Let's have a look at that. Yeah. Okay, let's just move that into place. So now we've got one. We can modify each one. We don't have to model lots of different ones. You want a bit of a gappy look and not quite straight, and gaps in the planks, slightly off. Turn off rotation angle snap there, so we get a bit more soft. There we go. Let's just modify this slightly so it's different from the first one. So we have too many that are similar. It's not going to work next to each other. See, and now you can see this. See, the more interesting you make them, the light hits them in a really good way, and makes them stand out more, and just make them look a bit more interesting. Some of them are going to be slightly sticking up. When we come to texture them and UV them, we'll just UV the 5, and then when we've finished applying all our textures, then we'll build the rest of it. But we will copy it just to show you the effect that we're going to get. I know it's subtle, but it's good. It's a good subtle. You'll see when it's finished, it'll make a big difference. And when we do finish, we'll go around and have a look at all these little details and how they stand out. You don't be afraid to go even more crazy with this if you want to. It's entirely up to you. Do what you want with your own design. See, it makes it a bit more believable. Okay, so I'm just going to group this lot together. Something we haven't used yet is group. Let's just turn that on. Right, let's just select. In fact, let's just let's call these so we know what they are. Porch plank 01. Five. Okay, let's just select all of these. Just make sure you got that so you don't move any. Go to group, click on group, and we call it planks. Okay, so now they're not attached, they're just in a group. So I can move them all together. If you want to select them individually, you just go to group, open, so you can see, and you get this purple, this pink box around it, and then within that group you can select the individual objects still. It's just quite handy just to keep things together. And you can see in our list over here, if I group that back up, close, make sure you close them, you can see they're all inside this planks group here, and I can close that. Keeps our list nice and neat as well. So now we click on that, and we can shift and copy a whole group like so. So we've got a new group, we call it planks 1, like that, which is good, and that works. Just position that when it's going into the one beside it. But already you can see that's working really well. It looks like a rickety-old walkway, and all the planks on the end here are different sizes, and yeah, that's really good. I'm really pleased with that. So we're only going to texture one group of these. We're not going to texture all of them. We don't need to. We just do, we UV one lot, copy it, and once it's all done, we can then copy it across. Open up that group on the end there, and just select our edges here so we can see what we're doing. There we go. Okay, so we can delete that one, and we can, we can either extend this out so it extends off in, and we can just delete that. That's fine. And we can subtly just move these so they just fit a bit better. Go down through the. There we go. That's fine. Okay, it's a bit gappy, but you get the idea. We can, don't forget to close groups once you've opened them and finished with them. Close them up again. If you want to open another group, grouping is good. It just keeps everything a bit more organised. There you go. So it's a little bit gappier, but that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so that's our planks done for now. I'm not going to do any more work to them than that, apart from when we set up all the UVs. It's looking pretty good. So now let's move on to the steps.